Welcome to the Thrive podcast with the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church.
How does your faith kind of play into it, or does it play into it?
What can be done about it? When I say the church, I'm talking about evangelical white Christians and the black folk who attend their churches.
Hello, welcome to the Thrive podcast with the Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm Fred Jeff Smith, pastor of Shiloh, and I'm very happy that you chose to either view us on Facebook, Vimeo, and YouTube, or listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, or Amazon Prime. As always, we invite your input and your feedback. You can reach me at fredjeffsmith@gmail.com. fredjeffsmith@gmail.com. Let us know how we're doing and what we can do to better service you through this podcast. I'm very honored today to welcome the Constable for East Baton Rouge Parish, Terrica Williams, here with us. Ms. Williams, thank you so much for taking the time to come and share with us today.
Thank you, and thanks for the invite today, because this is just to be in your presence is an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Flattery will get you everywhere. Got a free cup of coffee waiting for you when we're done.
Yes.
Tell me, how did you decide on law enforcement as a career?
Oh, wow. My career started about 21 years ago in law enforcement. And people were shocked because, growing up, sometimes we don't always be what we should be. Mm-hmm. And I was one, and I used to go out, hang out, and have a lot of friend girls, and we would always party on weekends. Mm-hmm. And then one day, all of a sudden, I was like, you know what? I'm a single mom. I was working jobs. I had 10 W-2s one year. Okay. I was like, this is not getting it, working 10 different jobs to survive.
Yes.
So I spoke with a guy, Danny McAllister. He was at the sheriff's office at the time. And he was like, come to the sheriff's office. I was like, Danny, that is not my cup of tea. He was like, you can do it. And I went and applied at the sheriff's office under Litchfield.
Okay.
Elmer Litchfield. And I started working. I went through the police academy, and from there, my career just took off, and it's been wonderful. It's been a great 21 years, because normally in law enforcement, you get burned out. Mm-hmm. And so far, I'm still hanging, so I think I'm doing good.
Help me and those who are viewing and or listening to distinguish between the work of the constable and the work of the sheriff and the work of the Baton Rouge Police Department. I believe there's some 17 different law enforcement agencies that operate within Baton Rouge and East Baton Rouge Parish, and not everybody knows what everybody does. So help us clarify, what is the role of the constable?
Okay, and the simplest way to know the difference, the sheriff is an elected official who's responsible for the parish. The constable is an elected official who's responsible for everything in the city. Okay. And then the chief of police is appointed by the mayor, and he's responsible for everything in the city, more criminal than civil. Constables do civil, way more civil than criminal, but we can do both. Okay. My officers are post-certified police officers. They go through the police academy, the training academy. Okay. They sit in the same classrooms with the sheriff deputies. They sit in the same classrooms with BRPD officers, because they are post-certified police officers. We do more evictions, civil mandates, bench warrants, repossessions, garnishments. We have a jail downtown at the city, in the city hall. Yes. In the city court. We maintain everything inside of Baton Rouge City Court. We provide security for the judges in City Court. And when I say we have a jail, the jail is really a holding cell. It's not a jail. This was actually the first jail in Louisiana, was the Baton Rouge City Jail. Okay. Yes. Okay.
I lived for a time in New Orleans, went to school down there, and the first pastorate that I had was down there. I was down there for about 9 years. They had what they called a criminal sheriff and a civil sheriff. No such translation is here, but I'm wondering, would I equate the constable's office with the civil sheriff, or would that be an incorrect assumption?
Yeah, it would be along that lines. Okay. Actually, constables were the first law enforcement agencies in history, and it was called constables. And then as time went, they started moving away from constables to marshals. Okay. So you have U.S. marshals, but you have marshals. And the marshals and the constables are pretty much the same, but when you talk about the civil side, and it's basically because of the civil piece of it. You know, we do maybe 80% of our job is civil. Okay. And the other 20% is criminal.
What do you find to be the most distressing part of your job? I would imagine evictions would do that.
Yes. Yes, and I tell people all the time, I don't know if you noticed, but sometimes you may see me on the news dressed like Mrs. Claus. Sometimes you see me on the news dressed like a princess for Halloween because we do trunk or treat. We don't do Halloween, we do trunk or treat for the kids. And to show kids how you can come out, you can enjoy the moment as far as Halloween and do it as a festival instead of the trick-or-treat side of it. But I try to give back so much of positive stuff because of the negative things and I'm not supposed to say negative. I'm supposed to say because of the mandates. But it's a court mandate. If you get an eviction, it's not because the constable says to evict you. It's because the court has ordered that this eviction go through. If your check is being garnished, that's because the court says you hadn't paid something or something is wrong and you need to pay it.
Right.
So I try to do positive things to kind of offset the negative side of it. But it's stressful because I get so many calls from people. Oh, I'm getting evicted. I have an eviction notice. And just yesterday I got a call from a lady and she was like, well, I had a court date last Thursday, but my dad, we went doing a funeral for my dad during the time and I just wasn't thinking and she didn't go to court. And I say, ma'am, I understand. I say, but the thing is, when you don't show up in court, how can you plead your case? And you have to, and people don't understand, just go to court and try to talk to the judge and explain to the judge. Most of the judges understand. Sometimes they'll give you a little more time. And I mean, in some cases, they may not give you that time.
Sure.
But if you explain yourself, you have a better chance.
Do you guys write traffic tickets?
Yeah, we do.
I asked that for my own personal. I'm sure none of our viewers do this, but when I'm driving on the interstate or on the street, if I see a Baton Rouge City Police Department car, I tend to slow down.
Yes.
If I see a constable's car, I feel like I don't have to because you guys aren't going to give us tickets. But from what I'm hearing you say, I might need to slow down when I'm coming up on a constable's car. Okay.
Respect them constables. I'll give you an example. We had a funeral service one day, and we went, because I'm one that's big on this, like families can't always afford to pay for the escort for funerals. So if we get a call and say that, hey, look, can you help this family out? Of course I'm going to help the family out. Sometimes they scrutinize me saying, well, she doing too much, but that's my heart. And that's just who I am. But we were doing a funeral escort, and one of my deputies, he's the one that he don't mind doing it. And this car just jumps in between the funeral, and we've lost police officers like that were doing funeral escorts, and somebody hit him, and we lost him.
Yes.
So here come mine. The one I knew was in the front of the procession. I said, "Oh God, here we go!" And he went behind that car. Well, you can't write me a ticket. He said, "You want to bet?"
Yeah.
He said, "Sir, I'll see you in court."
Yeah.
And he wrote him a ticket. Now, do we write tickets every day? No. Can we? Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Major Reginald Brown was your predecessor.
Yes, sir.
And he came out of the sheriff's office. Is it a logical? I heard you say that you started off in the sheriff's office. Is it a logical progression to come out of the sheriff's office and move into the constable's office? Is that a normal progression of things? Has that been your experience or what?
Normal, I wouldn't say normal, but it would be wise. Because that way, and I love the sheriff's office because I learned everything I needed to know at the sheriff's office. I went through the police academy, the 162nd Training Academy. Once I graduated, I worked in courtroom security, communications, the parish prison, criminal investigative unit. I worked different units to learn law enforcement and to learn the right way to be a good officer. So in doing that, it helped me when I came to the constables. I ended up leaving the sheriff's office because I was working shift work. Single parent, had a small kid at home. So the constable's office, of course, I don't like to say this, but we are the best kept secret in law enforcement. Our hours are Monday through Friday. The latest you may work is 5 o'clock each day.
Okay.
We're off on weekends. We're off on holidays. So, I mean, that was just great for me because of my son. And coming here, it was like, you know what? I knew a lot. And that's what prepared me when it was time to run for the position. And I was able to talk about my experiences, my training, the knowledge that I had in law enforcement. So I'm sure when Reginald Brown left the sheriff's office to come to the constable's office, 9 times out of 10, I can't speak for him, but I'm thinking in my situation, that's what helped us prepare us to be who we are in this position.
What is your thought about residency requirements for law enforcement officers? Back in 2016, when Alton Sterling was, to my way of thinking, murdered, I started to educate myself about Baton Rouge City Police Department. And one of the concerns that popped up to me is that there was no residency requirement, that police officers live within the city or even within the parish, that some police officers live as far away as Mississippi. And that, for me, was a concern. I don't see how you can adequately and properly police a community that you don't reside in. My opinion, I'm not trying to put it off on you, but I'm just I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are about residency requirements, and is there one for the constable's office?
There's none for the constable's office because, well, no.
Well, I don't mean you, but I mean for your
Well,
officers.
for me it is. I have to live in
You
the
have
city
to
limits.
live.
Yes,
Okay.
I have to live in the city limits to hold my position. And when I ran for office in 2018, I was living inside of the city limits.
Okay.
And ever since then, I've been here in the city. I grew up in the city, so I'm not afraid of the city. But my guys, the guys that work for me, I have some that live maybe in West Baton Rouge or Livingston Parish, but these are officers who they don't have take-home units. Most of them don't have take-home units because, of course, with our units, you can only go a certain radius to live.
Okay.
As far as the officers that live outside of the parish, I remember as a young girl, we lived right here in South Baton Rouge, right off East Boulevard on Cotton Street, and I remember we knew the police officers.
Yes.
We knew who they were, policing our neighborhoods. We had some that were good officers. We had some that would be considered bad officers, but we knew who the police officers were. I think if we go back to some of that, that would help with some of the things going on in the neighborhood. But then, by now, I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth, but by now, we've lost the trust of the community. So for a police officer to live in this neighborhood, the officer has to also be able to trust the neighbors. The neighbors should be able to trust the officer. And they've lost respect for us. They don't respect us at all. And I don't know how we get it back, but I wish we could. So that people can learn that police officers are not bad people, and we can live in the same neighborhoods and we can all get along with each other. And if you have a problem, hey, the officer live right across the street. Don't come in my neighborhood committing no crimes because the officer is paying attention. But I don't know how we can get them to come back to the neighborhoods. I wish we could.
I think most intelligent people recognize the value of law enforcement and appreciate the work that law enforcement officers do on any level. The concern that comes up has to do with issues regarding interactions with the community. Sometimes it deals with life and death, other times not. But where it seems like police officers, and correct me if I'm wrong for what I'm about to say, it seems like police officers get treated differently from the rest of the community. This whole qualified immunity thing is a concern of mine. That if an interaction takes place with law enforcement and a gun is fired and tragically someone loses their life, the rules for the police officer are very different than it is for the regular citizen. And I have voiced my objection to that. While I have you here, I just want to get your thoughts. And if I'm wrong, help educate me.
Okay. And I won't say that you're wrong because you have a right to your opinion. With my agency, and I can only speak for my agency because how somebody else supervise or run their agency, I can't tell them what to do. But for me, I'm going to give you an example with George Floyd.
Okay.
When this happened, it hurt me because I have a son. And I called my workers in. I had a meeting, and I said, let me tell y'all one thing. This will not happen under my leadership. I said, because it was unacceptable. I said, I train y'all. We do training. We do everything that there is to keep from getting to that point. So I would hope that I would never have to get to the point to have to defend one of my officers for doing wrong. Because if you're doing right, I have your back. If you do a policy and procedure, say I have your back. But if you're doing wrong, I cannot, and that's who I am. We had a diversity training class after that. I said, y'all need to be in the class. I need y'all to learn how to interact with people. As officers, they do have rights, but do they have rights to violate people? No, and it shouldn't be right. But I'm one who won't stand for it. I will not stand for police officers treating people wrong, doing people wrong. Even with my agency, I've had some instances where some things has happened with some of my officers, and I've been scrutinized for where she didn't fire them because everybody is innocent until proven guilty. And you have to look at all the facts, you have to look at all the evidence, and you have to make sure that it's right for both parties, not just the defendant, but the plaintiff as well. And if one of my guys do wrong, they know I'm the first one I'll be coming. They feel like, she don't cut no slack. No, because it's not right. You treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah. You grew up, you said, in South Baton Rouge, and then at some point you moved to North Baton Rouge. What do you think about South and North right now, as a person who grew up here? And to me, there are somewhat stark differences between South Baton Rouge. I grew up in North Baton Rouge. I grew up in Scotlandville, grew up in Southern Heights. And to me, there are stark differences between North and South. What's your thought about that?
When I ride through South Baton Rouge, quite often, I even would take kids back to show where I grew up. And the street I grew up on is no longer a street. It's just a street. No houses. Everything is gone. Nobody's rebuilding. Nobody's trying to bring back to the neighborhood. There was one time, like years ago when I was younger, I even looked at purchasing a piece of land that was just there that we lived on, and they had already sold the land. Because it's like, if everybody moved out of the neighborhood, what's left? And in South Baton Rouge, there's nothing left. When you go to Glen Oaks, I grew up we moved to Glen Oaks after my mom passed.
Yes.
And Glen Oaks can't vote for me at all. They cannot vote. I'm not on their ballot. That's out the city limits. But I still go back to Glen Oaks, and I give out turkeys. I give out Christmas toys. I try to continue to give back to the neighborhood where I grew up, because when you look at the difference in, like you say, South Baton Rouge and North Baton Rouge, it is a difference.
Yes.
It's a difference. I even go back to South. I go to South Baton Rouge. I do 2 Christmas toy giveaways. One in South Baton Rouge, one in North Baton Rouge, because these are the areas that I come from. I still try to give in between those areas, but I try to make sure and give back where I come from. And it's a difference with both areas. It's a difference.
Do you get offended like I do when they call Ardenwood North Baton Rouge? I grew up in this city. I'm 63 years old. Nobody can tell me that just crossing Florida Boulevard on Ardenwood makes it North Baton Rouge. All this big talk about a grocery store coming to North Baton Rouge. Rouse's is not, I got a problem with Rouse's, period. But Rouse's is not in North Baton Rouge. And I get a little bit testy about people calling these little fringe areas that are right on the line North Baton Rouge, because it is not. As someone who lived in both North and South, do you share my thoughts about that, or do you have a different opinion?
I actually had a conversation with someone maybe a year or so ago when COVID was going on, and the kids were in school, and the schools in Glen Oaks were being affected by COVID. And I was like, I say the people coming to me, and I'm talking to this particular person about why is it the kids in Glen Oaks are still in school, but the kids on this end are not in school.
Right.
And I said the people are saying North and South, but I'm saying no. The people were saying color-wise, like the black kids over here, the white kids over there. And I say, let's make it make sense, balance it. And I do feel what you're saying, because once you get to Florida Street, they feel like, everything from Florida up is North Baton Rouge.
That's the great dividing line.
Yes.
When it really was not the dividing line when I was coming up. You had to get up. You had to get at least to Airline Highway before they thought that you were in North Baton Rouge.
Yes.
Okay. So at least I'm not by myself.
No,
that.
No.
So.
And I love Baton Rouge as a whole. So I look at it. Baton Rouge is Baton Rouge. And do for everybody in Baton Rouge. The certain people should do for everybody.
I share your opinion. I love Baton Rouge also. I've never wanted to live anywhere else but here. But I do acknowledge that there are stark differences in how things are done on one end of town than how they're done on the other. And people want to blame politicians for that. I don't see that as a political problem. It's a business problem. And the business model that says that South Baton Rouge is conducive for development and growth and North Baton Rouge is not, is what really needs to be changed. That's my speech for today. So you're running for re-election.
Yes.
Are you able to run repeatedly, or are you term limited?
It's until your health fails you. As long as you're in good mind and good health, you can continue to run. Reginald Brown did 18 years.
He did 18 years.
18 years.
And they're 4-year terms.
No, 6 years.
Six-year terms.
Yes.
Okay.
So he did 3 terms.
Okay.
18 years. He decided to retire, and that's when I decided to run. Of course, I was raised up. You don't run against the incumbent unless they're a bad person, and he wasn't a bad person. He was really a great person. Once he retired, I didn't have no aspirations of being a political person, no politician. It was just one day somebody said, you need to run for that position. If anybody know the job, you know it. Well, I'm not messing with them people. I say, I don't want to do no more law enforcement. It's like, I'm telling you, you can win. And here I am today, 6 years later, 5.5 years later, and I just stepped out on faith. And I went home, I talked to my pastor. Of course, my pastor is Ronald Robertson, the Capital Missionary.
Yes.
And I called him on the phone. I say, Pastor, I'm thinking about running for constable. Well, what you calling me for? And I looked at my phone like, this is my pastor on the phone.
Yeah.
He said, wait. He said, if you coming to me to say that's what you're thinking, evidently God already told you what to do. He said, I need you to step out on faith and do what you need to do. And I started running. I was running for my life, and here I am. I'm thankful because it paid off for me. I had $50 in faith is my story.
Wow. As a female law enforcement officer, forgive me for if it's chauvinistic to ask this question, do you find that you are treated differently by other law enforcement leaders because you're a woman as opposed to being a man?
Well, not with the leaders, because I'll be privileged with them. They love me. They treat me right. They protect me. They look for me. I'm actually the president over the state marshals and the constables association. They elected me in May of this year with a unanimous vote. So, which is a great thing because of the Marshals Association is more males than females. But we went to a conference last week in Tennessee, and they, where Terrica at? Where the constable at? We need you. Come on up in here. And it's like, they treat me like a little sister.
Okay.
They treat me like they care and they love me. They want to make sure I'm okay. Even when I first won office in 2018, I took office in 19. Of course, I ran into some challenges. The agency was having some deficits. And I'm just going to keep it real. We were in a major deficit, $460,000. And when I tell the story, I don't tell it to make Reginald Brown look bad. It's to show the public where I came from and what I had to do. I called Murphy Paul with BRPD. He came in with tasers and laptops because we didn't have any money. All of my accounts was closed out to pay the debt.
Okay.
Murphy came in. He brought in some used tasers, but they were better than the ones the officers had. We needed laptops. He said, oh, I got you. He brought some laptops in. I called Sid with the sheriff's office, and he came in with the weapons. We had guys would go to qualify, and the weapons wouldn't shoot. The bullets wouldn't even come out the weapons. Yes.
My goodness.
So I called Sid at the sheriff's office, and he came. He said, send them over to the range and let my guys take a look at them. So his guys worked on them, fixed them, got them back to working for us. But within my first year, I was able to find the money to replace all the weapons. Every constable received a new weapon. By my second year, they all received brand new tasers. And so each year I started replacing the equipment that they needed. But to show that coming in, I had the sheriff and the chief of police who really came to me to say, you know, we got your back. We're going to help you out. So as far as the leaders in law enforcement, they really, I think it's a bond. It's like family. They say that thin blue line.
Right.
It's that thin blue line, and we look out for each other. But a lot of times when you talk to like people in the community, oh, you're a police officer. Women shouldn't be doing that. And actually, to be honest, I sued the constable's office because they treat females different than males. I probably shouldn't say that, but I sued
When was
them.
this?
In 2014.
Okay.
And I won my lawsuit in federal court.
Okay.
And it wasn't, it was because we should be treated the same and equal. We do the same work. We do the same training. When we go through the police academy, they tell us there's no male and female.
Okay.
Everybody is the same. If a male do 20 push-ups, a female have to do 20. If a male run 1.5 miles, a female have to run 1.5 miles. They don't say because you're a female, you do 5 and he do 20. We do the same work.
Yes, ma'am.
So when we get in the workforce, we should be treated the same way.
Sure.
It shouldn't be a male can go and do A, B, C, and D, and then if the female do A, B, C, and D, there's something wrong with it. So, of course, I stood for what I believed in, and I went and I did my proper channels, and I filed my lawsuit, and I won based on them discriminating against females.
What do you see as a candidate for constable, as an incumbent? What do you see as the major issues that face the constable's office as you're running now?
That's a hard question because for me, my faith is so strong in God, nothing is major. Everything that I've always set out to do or wanted to do, I've always accomplished it. So with this agency, the only challenges that I ran into, as I said, we were in a deficit. I was able to pull it out, and it makes it easy. It looks easy to other people. And I was able to do everything that I thought I couldn't do in 6 years, in 5.5 years. Weapons, tasers, pay increases. The constables were the lowest paid police officers in the state of Louisiana. And as of today, they're up 11%.
So then let me ask the question a different way. 5.5 years ago, you went in and you found these things, and you corrected everything that you saw. So as you run for re-election, you don't have to correct what you've already corrected. What is it that you're looking to accomplish moving forward as opposed to what you had to deal with when you first came in?
Just to continue to rebuild it, rebrand the constable's office. Also, I walked into a lot of issues. Like a lot of times you hear people say morale. I walked into 4 lawsuits. They wasn't mine, but they were there. And I'm thinking because when you don't have the right equipment and stuff, you kind of get into a space that you just don't care anymore. But just to keep building it and to fix now, I fixed all of the mechanical stuff. So now it's time to work on the officers, rebuild them, show them that, this is a great job. And we can make it together if we stand together as a team. But most importantly, just continuing to stand on what we've already started, rebuilding it, rebranding it. Of course, they still need more equipment. Of course, they still need training. We had to stop training because of COVID. But now that COVID has kind of like shifted, we can start back training, and we recently started back training. But to get them more training, because in order to be good at what you do, you have to train. And most people, you work how you've been trained. So training, continuing to replenish the equipment that they need. We had units that were outdated. We just recently purchased maybe 6 units in the last maybe 2 years here. So now it's to return this agency.
So where does the bulk of the constable's office money come from? DAs are always complaining they don't have enough money, and the city is always giving them, allotting a certain amount of money to them, way more to the prosecutor than to the public defender. That's an issue for another day. If ever I get the DA in here to sit across, I'll ask him that question. But exactly where does the constable's money come from? Is it a city grant? Are you expected to go out and secure money from private entities? How does that work?
No, we have 2 phases of our funding. One of the phases is our the general fund, which comes from the city of Baton Rouge. The second phase is our court cost fund, where all the funding that we collect, we get a portion of it. City court, like if you pay a traffic ticket, city court get a portion, the district attorney's office get a portion, and the constable get a portion.
Okay.
When I started at the constable's office, when I started, my budget was around $2.5 million.
Okay.
Then moving forward during COVID, it kind of stayed the same. Then it went up to $3.5 million. So as of today, my budget is $4.5 million.
Okay.
Yeah, there was at one time I heard rumors that they thought my budget was $300,000. I promise you. I have the largest constable's office in the state of Louisiana.
Okay.
Normally constables are, marshals are constables. It's one man with maybe 1 or 2 officers, and they run the court, or they have volunteers to come in and help. I have a staff of like 44 employees, and I have the largest agency in the state of Louisiana. So in order to do that, I have to have money to pay the people. Nobody works for free.
Right.
So I have to be able to pay them, and my budget is $4.5 million.
Okay.
But it's funding that's generated from the city of Baton Rouge and our court cost fund that comes in from the fees we collect.
There's a lot of talk about crime being a problem pervasively throughout the nation. Yet when you look at FBI reports that are coming out, it seems that violent crimes are at an all-time low nationally. But there still seem to be issues revolving violent crime locally. what do you think accounts for that, and how do you expect to be a part of the remedy for that going forward?
Okay. Of course, every summer I do a mentoring program with young kids. And it started about maybe 4 years ago. There was an incident on College Drive where there was a pool party and a 2-year-old kid was shot and killed. And I woke up the next morning, I was like, this is just too much. And normally constables don't get involved with the criminal side of it. Most constables try to mind their own business, serve their papers, run the court, and just stay out of it. But here I was like, we have to do something. So I started a mentoring program, whereas we bring in kids ages 10 to 15. They spend a week with us in the summertime. We mentor them, we talk to them about making the right choices, keeping them out of trouble. We even have a gun trailer to where as we show them what happens. We put a watermelon in it, we shoot the watermelon, it shows how it explodes, just to teach them that once you pull a trigger, it's hard to change it. And it's like the more kids we can touch, we may not be able to save all, because we start off with 5 kids a week. Now we're up to 10 kids a week. Every summer I have about 10 plus kids a week, and they love it. I feed them hot meals. They get breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, everything. And they spend a whole week with me and my guys. So it's to try to keep them out of the streets and keep them out of trouble. Most of the kids that we talk to, they lost hope. They feel like nobody cares. They feel like the parents are working and they don't have, today most parents have to work 3 and 4 jobs just to keep the lights on.
Sure.
So now I'm leaving my kids at home. Little Johnny down the street, who mama is probably at work or somewhere, he don't care. He's coming to get my kid, and now they're starting to do little things together. And before you know it, this small problem gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's out of hand. So as far as law enforcement, if we all just try to touch one kid and bring them in. In my mentoring program, I had one kid who was a gang member. He was like, yeah, I'm a gang. I was like, wait, don't come up here with that mess. I said, we're not having that up in here. And he was throwing up the gang signs and stuff. I said, no, sir. And he was being raised by his grandmother. The mama was out in the streets on drugs. Nobody knew where she was at. And we kept him for a week. And every day I wanted to send him home. I was like, you can't stay up here doing all of this. But I couldn't because this is one that needed us.
Right.
I even got with Jonathan at DCL's funeral home.
Jonathan Rose.
Yes. Jonathan come out and bring the casket with the mirror in it and let them look in the casket and say, hey, this is where you're going if you don't stop. And I promise you, the next year this kid was gone. We got a call, and we try to keep up with some of the kids. We try to reach back out and check on them from time to time. If they don't come back the next year, we try to check and see where they are. And sure enough, somebody had killed them. So I just think it's something that we can all work on. It's going to take faith-based. It's going to take community leaders. It's going to take the neighborhood, the grandmas and the grandpas, because if the mama's not doing it, somebody have to do it.
Right.
And it's going to take all of us to try to fix this problem.
In your interactions with the community and the affirming programs that you have tried to put forth, tell me what it feels like when you have to put handcuffs on somebody and take them away.
It's not a good feeling. It's not. And I even, when I first took office, my deputies, they served papers. They went out to serve a notice, a court notice. It wasn't an arrest warrant. It was a court paper to come to court. And the young man thought they were coming to arrest him, but it was a paper for the mom. I'm not going to jail. Y'all are taking me to jail. And I could hear the officers on the radio calling for backup, like, we need backup. And they sound frantic on the radio. So if you notice, I'm in a uniform every day.
Right.
I'm listening to the radio. I'm riding down the streets. And I was like, we need units en route to that location. So I drive up to the location, and I see 2 of my deputies with one guy. He's walking. They walking in a circle because they don't want to arrest you. They just need you to calm down so they can talk to you and see what's going on. And I say, sir, listen. I said, and I pulled up. I said, let me tell you one thing. I say, if you don't calm down, you're going to jail. I said, I need you to comply with what they're telling you. Well, what you want me to do? I said, I need you to comply. I said, put your hands on the car. They checked him. They searched him. And he said, well, all right. And he went on to put his hands on the car. They searched him, didn't have no weapons on him. And everybody went home safe. So it takes, sometimes if I hadn't pulled up, what would have happened?
Right.
They probably would have had to fight him.
Right.
They would have had to slam him on the ground or whatever. But it takes somebody to have enough, the temperament, to be able to talk to people and calm them down. And then he may not listen to me. He may listen to somebody else. But it takes everybody doing their part to make sure everybody's being treated fairly. And I promise you, in 21 years, I've probably handcuffed somebody maybe 3 times. maybe 3 times.
Wow.
Because we gonna talk about this first. Let's talk about it. I tell them, I said, don't mess my hair up. I said, if y'all make me mess my hair up, it's gonna be a problem. And they just they do that. They be laughing like, you serious? I say, yes. I say, stop all of that, y'all.
Yeah.
And they listen to you. You just have to know how to treat people and how to deal with people.
So there are others who are running for your seat. What is it that you think is their chief criticism of your administration that makes them think that there's a time for a change?
Okay. And I can only say the rumors I've heard, because me and the person, we've never had a conversation about it. I do know 4 years ago they called me and they asked me to do something that I couldn't do. And it just seems like from there everything went left. And so when now that the conversations come up, well, they say that the morale is down. They say you don't know what you're doing. You're not running the office right. And I don't know what else I could do. I mean, I've purchased all the new equipment. I've been talking to all the employees. I have a full staff of employees. If somebody retires, I had one guy, he had 40 years. He retired. I mean, after 40 years, I want to retire. A few other people retired with 30 years of service, 32 years. Nobody just walk out and quit. Most of the people are retiring. So I don't know. I try to figure it out, but after so long, it's like, you know what? Don't try to figure it out anymore. Just keep moving. So the only complaints I've heard, like I say, me and the person, we've never talked about it, but the complaints I've heard has been morale. I don't know how to run the agency, and the officers didn't have the proper equipment, but that was before I was the constable. Once I became the constable, I've been able to get the equipment that they need.
Do you feel as though Baton Rouge is moving in the right direction? Before we started taping, you talked about the fact that while you were raised in South Baton Rouge, moved to North Baton Rouge, that you have roots in Mississippi. Clearly, you made the choice to plant your flag in Baton Rouge. As a Baton Rouge resident, what do you think about the direction in which the city is going?
Honestly, that's a hard question, Pastor. But to be honest about it, I think, because I've seen Baton Rouge at its highs, I've seen it at its lows. I mean, I'm 52 years old, so I've been around. And I've seen it better, but I've also seen it way worse than what it is now. And I think if we keep pushing, we can get to where we need to be. But if you have people that are pushing and then other people that are trying to stop you from pushing, how do we get far? How do we get ahead? And I'll give you an example. My race, this is a candid conversation with us, my race. If I'm in the seat doing what I'm supposed to do, running this agency, helping my community, helping my city, being the person that I can be, and then somebody else who's in a seat that can help the communities, give up their seat to mess with my seat, how can we go forward? We have to work with each other. We have to help each other. And if we stick together, we help each other, we can make a better Baton Rouge. And I think Baton Rouge can be better.
Do you think that there's too much duplicity in those who want to help? Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. The mayor-president, who's in her own election, has a program called Safe, Healthy, Hopeful Baton Rouge. And it's been in place now for 4 or 5 years. I'm not exactly sure how many years. But about 2 years ago, business leadership, Baton Rouge Area Foundation, BRAC, came up with a different entity that they developed, which essentially deals with the same thing. I do a weekly Staying in Prayer segment, and one of the things that troubled me when I looked at this is if you laid their agenda side by side, their objectives side by side, other than a few differences in wording, they want the same thing, which leads me to ask the question, why do you need to form a separate entity to do what the mayor's office is already committed to doing? And the only reason I can come up with is politics and race. And money, and so I'm asking you, do you think that there's too much duplicity in those things that we are trying to do? because people want to be able to control it themselves rather than to get on board with what others are doing? I already got my own answer, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to that. Because a lot of that has to do with law enforcement and how law enforcement plays a role. Are you all going to be tasked to answer to a private entity, Braff and Breck, or are you going to be tasked to work with the mayor's group over here? And why are there two?
So my opinion, and this is my opinion, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I feel that it should be one, because how can we get it accomplished if everybody is all over the place? And I hate to keep going back to me because I can only speak for me. The subject came up yesterday that City Court has a jail that's not being utilized. And somebody else said, well, I know how to get the money to get the jail open back up in A, B, C, and D. And I'm like, well, if you know how to get the money, help me get it open back up. So I think we should do one, but I don't know why they do what they do. I wish I could answer that, but they should be one. I would think one would do better. We could get more things accomplished. We could help more people if everybody was going in the same direction.
And if Braff and Breck would bring their money into the already existing East Baton Rouge Parish entity, then you wouldn't have to worry about funding and things of that sort. A lot of people spend a whole lot of time writing grants because they need funding to do the things that they want to do. And yet there are entities within our community that have money at their disposal that they won't bring to bear against the things that they say they want to see to improve Baton Rouge. Everybody wants to scream and holler, Baton Rouge has a crime problem, but you don't want to do anything to train people for jobs. You don't want to do anything to improve the school system except take money out of the public school system and give it to rich white folks so that they can keep their children in private school. So I'm just wondering, is it about the community or is it about us doing it our way?
I don't know. We might need to
I don't
ask
run
them.
for office.
I
so.
know. We might be asking them that question. And I'm going to say, even like when you talk about the grants, I was in an interview with the Democratic Party board. Of course, they endorsed me, so I'm glad I got the endorsement. But one of the questions that I was asked was, how many grants do you write? I don't, because I know how to maximize the funding that I have to operate my agency with a $4.5 million budget. $4 million, not $4 million budget. If I can't run my agency on that, something is wrong with me. And I mean, grants are good. I have nothing against the people that write grants. We have 2 grants, but they're smaller grants, and it's like a joint grant. Like with the sheriff's office, we have a warrant grant. We split it in half. It's like $9,000. We split it in half, and it's basically to go out and target violent offenders, domestic abuse offenders. It's not just to pick up somebody on traffic tickets. But this particular grant is something that's between 2 agencies, and it's like $4,500. So that's not enough money for me to operate my agency off of. But I run my agency based on the funding that I have. Now, trust me, if a grant was out there and I needed it, I would get it. But if we learn how to work within the means of what we have, we should be able to be okay.
Do you think East Baton Rouge Parish needs a new parish prison?
Yes.
Parish jail?
Yes.
We call it parish prison. Technically, it's a jail,
Yes.
not a prison.
Yes.
But there has been a push to build a new jail out in North Baton Rouge. Are you a proponent of that?
Yes, because I feel, and it's, I hate to keep saying my opinion because it's my opinion. I don't want anybody to take it wrong. I feel that even though a person has committed a crime and they're in jail, they still should have some decent living arrangements. They shouldn't have to live. The same thing with the city jail. If you come see it, it's like there's no hot water. It's an old jail. It's been there. This jail would have to probably tear down the entire city court because it's under city court. So you would have to demolish the whole city court to rebuild the jail.
Just to get there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say we're going to operate this as a full 24-hour jail. It's a holding facility where you can hold them for a few hours. But me personally, I wouldn't want to keep somebody in that jail. And I mean, they criminals. No, they're human beings. And they should have some decent arrangements when they're in jail.
One of the concerns that I have about people who are in parish prison, and I know that your office is not directly responsible for that, but you are law enforcement, and I do want to hear your opinion, is that some people are in there for such a long time without actually going to trial, without opportunity to receive bail, and they can't hold a job. If they have a job, the great likelihood is by the time they get out, even if they're not guilty of the crime, their lives are ruined. The job no longer exists. The bail system seems to be broken, in my opinion. Now, I had a person sitting in here about a year ago. They were running for a judgeship, and I raised this question, and their answer didn't satisfy me.
Wow.
So, what's your opinion about the bail system and the way that it works?
It's funny you asked that question. I used to be a bail bond agent, so I know how it works.
Okay.
And I used to have around the clock right down the street somewhere.
Okay.
But when I came to the constable's office, because we're such a small jail, when they arrest people back then, they used to, before I was the constable, I was the regular deputy, and I ran the city jail, first female to run the jail. But let's just say an officer would arrest somebody, bring them to us if they had traffic tickets or whatever. I would make sure that they get the phone calls they needed. I would make sure that whatever they could do to try to bond out from city jail before they go to parish prison. Because, most times they get to parish prison, they may have to stay there 2 or 3 days before they can get out.
Right.
Because they still have to wait until they see a judge. My job was to make sure that they could get a bail before they be transported to parish prison. And I just think that's what everybody should do. Everybody has a right to, if I can bond out, let me bond out. I even had an incident where a man was arrested on a seatbelt ticket. I think it was a seatbelt ticket. He had an altercation with his neighbor, something dealing with a dog, and they called the police out. He had a bench warrant for city court. And I walked in the jail, and I saw the man in the jail, and I'm talking about this was somebody high up, like I knew him. I said, what you doing up in here? And he explained to me what happened, so I go to the person in charge at the time, and I say, this man don't need to be in jail. I said, it's a seatbelt ticket. So the person in charge was like, oh, just let him go pay it. And by the time I came back, my supervisor, somebody else, was like, no, he needs to be booked in jail. And I'm like, you booked this man in jail, and now he has an arrest record for a traffic ticket. And he's like, I don't care. So I turned the corner, and they still booked him, put him in the system, for a traffic ticket.
Yeah.
And I went back to at the time, the chief deputy. I was like, I just don't think that's fair. And he's like, no, that's not fair. But it was out of my control because the supervisor had the last call. So me being who I am, I just think help people as much as you can. And if they need a bail, give them a bail so that they can get out of jail. I get calls every day. So-and-so in jail. What can I do? I make phone calls. I try to figure out what's going on. I try to make sure the people get the proper bails that they not, whatever the law say. Make sure they get a bond so that they can bond out of jail. And I make phone calls. You probably think I run the parish prison because I'm calling. They know me well. I'm calling there every day like, hey, what's going on with this person? And then I call the family back and I give them answers because people really just want answers. How can they do it and what can they do?
Baton Rouge City Court, Baton Rouge Juvenile Court, Baton Rouge Family Court, 19th JDC, and I'm sure I'm leaving out some courts. Much like the levels of law enforcement, there are different levels of court. And the person like me, John Q. Public, doesn't always appreciate the distinctions between these courts. Do you think that there is too much specificity that exists within the court system?
No, because if you start eliminating courts, then I won't have a job. We need Baton Rouge City Court. No, and you know what? No, because a lot of times people are afraid to go to court. And once they know, okay, I'm going to city court, so this just, like they say, lightweight. This something simple, misdemeanor, traffic tickets, seatbelt tickets.
But you'll be there for 6 hours to pay a $30 traffic ticket. that with fees now costs $180. Trust me, I've been there for traffic matters. Oh yeah.
Oh.
It's happened a few times.
Well,
I promise you, I have reformed, but trust me, I've been in that situation.
Wow.
You go in there, report at 8:00, and you walk into a room, and there are 250 people in there, and you just have to take a number, and you just have to wait till they get to your number. It can be a challenging process.
I think they fixed that. I think we can go online and pay it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I haven't been in a while,
Yeah,
so I
you
don't
go
know.
online and pay it now.
Okay.
So next time, call me so we can let you go online and pay it.
Okay.
But I think the difference in the courts, because most people look at city court, smaller court, district court, the bigger court, more major stuff. So if I had a traffic ticket, I don't think I would want to go in district court, 19 JDC, to pay a traffic ticket. And like you say, I have to stay there all day because those cases are way more serious and it's more detailed to it, and they have to wait on the judge and the prosecutor and everybody just to come in and get a resolution to that case. So then you'll be in court all day in district court.
Yes.
So I think, the smaller courts are even like when you go to Texas, they have court all night. They have court all day and all night. I don't see how they do it, but they have court all night.
Round the clock.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
We don't need to do that in Baton Rouge, though. Let's just keep it the way it is, because then my guys have to work past 5 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am.
We like our 8 to 5.
Yes, ma'am. St. George has become a reality, which I expected was going to happen. I, for one, appreciate the fight that was put up to keep St. George from becoming a city, because I don't believe that you need to form a city to get an independent school system, and that's what this is really all about, getting an independent school system. In that St. George is now a reality, does that in any way, shape, or form affect your office? I know you said that you all deal with the city, but it's right next door and it's within the parish. Are you going to have to address any concerns that exist within St. George?
Yes. This year when we did our budgets, right, we had to prepare 3 different budgets. One with St. George, one without St. George, and 2 budgets, one with and one without St. George. And if the one with St. George, we may have to, the way they were looking at it, we may have to start laying people off. We may have to make some changes in our office. But then I went to bat and I said, I can't afford to do that because law enforcement is needed. And if I lose employees, then how do we keep it safe? And of course, we all, police officers are stretched thin as is. And if you start laying people off, then that means one person has to do double the work.
But St. George has a wonderful police department. They have a chief with no officers. And I mean, most ideal system in the world.
Wow.
They're asking the sheriff to continue to be the primary law enforcement officer for their community, which, by the way, is against the law. But he did it in Central, and he's been doing it in Central, and he still does it in Central, and now he's about to do it in St. George. And so I don't know how you have a police chief and not one police officer and not one police car and not one jail, but they do wonderful things out there. I'm just curious about your thoughts about things like that.
Yes. Well, I can only speak for the constable's office. And my office, I have a small office. So, like I say, 44 employees. I just have to keep what I have. And I can't afford to send somebody to St. George. I can't afford to send them somewhere else. I can't afford to lose police officers. I have to keep what I have. And I try to stay over here at the constable's office.
You're a woman of faith. I know that.
Yes, sir.
You're a member of Capital Missionary Baptist
Yes,
Church.
sir.
I know your pastor very well. How does your faith interact with your day-to-day operation as first a law enforcement officer and then the constable for Baton Rouge?
Without faith, I couldn't make it. I promise you I couldn't, because challenges, like they say, like my grandmother used to say, they threw everything at me but the kitchen sink. Yeah, sometimes I get it. But I pray. I continue to stand on God's word. And I know his word says he'll never leave me nor forsake me. So when it comes at me, I'll be like, Lord, you got me. And it just always works itself out. It always. And people be like, how you do it? And I just look up and say, you know what, he got me. So it helps me. It helps me make it like, of course, campaigning. I'm churching here, churching there. I go to church. I haven't been to my own church in probably about like Sundays. But my pastor know, and I call him, I say, Daddy, because I call him my daddy. I say, Daddy, you know what I'm doing? He said, I know. He said, we'll see you when you finish. He said, you know where your church staying.
Right.
So I go to church on Sundays from like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning to 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I know that without God in the midst of it, it's impossible. But with him in the middle of it, everything is possible. So I trust him, and I know he's going to keep pushing me. He's going to keep my mind, because without him, you lose your mind. So he keeps me going. And they know I get up and I have Bibles on the office. As a matter of fact, somebody gave me a Bible when I won office in 2018. The person that's running against me gave me a Bible. And the Bibles are sitting on my desk. And I have like 3 Bibles on my desk in my office.
Heart.
I know.
Look at that camera right there and tell the public why they should vote you back in for a second term as constable for Baton Rouge.
Okay. Well, of course, I'm Terrica Williams. I'm the city constable for the city of Baton Rouge. In 2018, I offered myself to the people, and they voted for me with 57% of the votes, making me not only the first female, but the youngest female constable in the history of the agency. In the last 5.5 years, I've done everything I could to prove myself to my community and to the people in my community. And I plan to stay in this seat and continue to do the work that God has allowed me to do and the work for my community. On November the 5th, I ask that you consider me, continue to vote for me, and continue to keep me as your city constable. I have the training, the knowledge, the experience, the compassion, and the understanding to continue to run the city constable's office the way it should be ran. Look up the facts and you'll see. Check my records, as they say. Terrica Williams, city constable for the city of Baton Rouge, number 67 on your ballot. Thank you.
Constable, thank you for taking the time to come and share with us today. Thank you for viewing. Thank you for listening. We'll be back again next time.